The deception unveiled. The monitoring station on Europa detected the anomaly at 0347 hours Earth Standard Time. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen stared at the data streaming across her screen, her coffee growing cold in her hand. The quantum signature was unlike anything in their database, yet it bore traces of something disturbingly familiar. "Commander, you need to see this," she called to her superior, Marcus Rodriguez, who was reviewing maintenance reports at the adjacent station. Rodriguez moved to her console, his weathered face creasing with concern as he studied the readings. "That's not possible. These energy patterns..." He trailed off, his eyes widening with realization. "They match the Galactic Council's diplomatic vessels," Chen finished. "But they're cloaked, and they've been here for months." The implications hit them both simultaneously. The Galactic Council, humanity's supposed protectors and allies for the past 15 years, had been secretly monitoring Earth's most sensitive military installations. The very beings who had promised to shield humanity from hostile species had been spying on them. Rodriguez's hand moved to the emergency communication panel. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Within hours." The discovery rippled through Earth's military hierarchy. General Alexandra Foster, commanding officer of Earth's Combined Defense Forces, convened an emergency session with her top advisors in the secure bunker beneath Mount Cheyenne. "How extensive is the surveillance?" Foster demanded, her steel gray eyes scanning the assembled officers. Intelligence Director James Park projected a holographic map of the solar system. Red dots appeared like a rash across the display. "We've identified over 300 cloaked observation posts. They've been monitoring our shipyards, weapons research facilities, and population centers." "For how long?" Foster's voice was dangerously quiet. "Our analysts believe at least 5 years, possibly since first contact," Park replied. The room fell silent. 5 years of supposed friendship. 5 years of technology sharing agreements where humanity had given far more than it received. 5 years of being told they weren't ready for advanced defensive systems while alien eyes watched their every move. "There's more," Park continued. "We intercepted a transmission fragment. It's heavily encrypted, but our AI managed to decode part of it." He paused, his face grim. "They're planning something called the harvesting." Foster's jaw tightened. "Define harvesting." "We believe it refers to the systematic extraction of human genetic material and neural patterns. The Council has apparently determined that humanity's rapid technological advancement and adaptability make us valuable resources." Captain Maria Volkov, head of the Special Operations Division, leaned forward. "You're saying they see us as a crop to be harvested?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Park confirmed. "And according to the timeline we've decoded, the harvesting is scheduled to begin in 6 weeks. Foster stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. 6 weeks. She looked at each officer in turn. "I want every available ship recalled immediately. Cancel all leave. Activate the reserve fleets." "General," Admiral Chen interjected, "the Council has 50 times our fleet strength. Even if we..." "The Council has 50 times our known fleet strength," Foster corrected. "Mr. Park, initiate Protocol 7. Several officers exchanged surprised glances. Protocol 7 was a legend, a rumor of black sites and secret shipyards hidden throughout the solar system. Park nodded. "Understood, General. Initiating Protocol 7. Across the solar system, hidden facilities came to life. Asteroid bases, carved into solid rock, powered up their reactors. Shipyards concealed in the rings of Saturn activated their construction bays. The Mars Underground, a network of secret military installations, began warming up ships that had been built in absolute secrecy. Dr. Elizabeth Harper, chief scientist of the Prometheus Project, received the activation order in her laboratory beneath the Martian surface. She had spent the last decade reverse engineering alien technology, pushing human science to its limits and beyond. Now, as she looked at the rows of experimental weapons and prototype shields, she felt a grim satisfaction. "They think we're primitives," she told her team. "They think we're sheep to be sheared. They're about to learn that humans have been the apex predator on Earth for thousands of years, and we didn't get there by being prey." The first sign of humanity's response came 3 days later. Council observation posts began going dark, one by one. The aliens monitoring Earth's activities found their equipment failing, their cloaking systems compromised. When they tried to report back to their superiors, they discovered their communication channels filled with static. High Counselor Zixa Theta received the first report of missing observation posts in his chamber aboard the Council flagship. His forearms moved in agitation as he reviewed the data. "How many?" he demanded of his intelligence officer. 17 posts have gone silent in the past rotation, the officer reported. No distress signals, no debris, they simply vanished. Zix Theta's compound eyes narrowed. The humans? Unknown, High Counselor. Their visible fleet movements show no unusual activity. But Zixa Theta had spent decades studying lesser species before their harvesting. He recognized the signs of a wounded predator, preparing to strike. Accelerate the timetable, begin the harvesting immediately. Council fleets began moving toward Earth, confident in their numerical superiority. They had conquered 100 species, reduced proud civilizations to resource pools. Humanity would be no different. They were wrong. The first engagement occurred near Jupiter. A small Council scout fleet, investigating the disappearance of an observation post, encountered what appeared to be a mining vessel. The Council ships moved to intercept, their weapons powered down in accordance with standard harvesting protocols. The mining vessel exploded, not from Council fire, but from within. The blast wave carried with it a cloud of microscopic machines, each no larger than a dust mote. The nanobots swarmed over the Council ships, eating through their hulls, destroying their systems from the inside out. By the time the Council commanders realized what was happening, it was too late. Their ships were being devoured, transformed, into expanding clouds of mechanical death that sought out new targets. The humans had learned well from their secret observations. They had studied Council technology, found its weaknesses, and created weapons specifically designed to exploit them. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the EDS Retribution as the Council fleet dissolved. "Send the message," he ordered. Across the galaxy, every Council communication channel received the same transmission. General Foster's face appeared, her expression cold and determined. "This is General Alexandra Foster of Earth's Combined Defense Forces. You have betrayed our trust. You have plotted our destruction. You have gravely underestimated humanity's capacity for survival." She paused, her eyes hardening. "You want to harvest us? Come and try. We'll be waiting." The hunt had begun, and, this time, humanity was the hunter. The gathering storm, the message from Earth rippled through human space like a shockwave. On mining colonies in the asteroid belt, workers put down their tools and reported to mobilization centers. On Mars, the terraforming project came to a halt as every available person answered the call to arms. Even the scientific outposts on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn began converting their research vessels into warships. Captain Jake Morrison received the recall order while patrolling the outer system in his corvette, the Defiant. His crew of 30 had been tracking comets for the past 6 months, a routine assignment that had suddenly become anything but routine. "All hands, this is the captain," Morrison announced over the ship's intercom. "We've received a priority. 1 recall. The Council has betrayed us, we're at war." The bridge fell silent as his words sank in. Lieutenant Emma Thompson, his second in command, was the first to speak. "Sir, the Defiant isn't equipped for combat. We have mining lasers and survey equipment, not weapons." Morrison's jaw set with determination. "Then we'll make do with what we have. Set course for Ceres Station, maximum burn." As the Defiant changed course, similar scenes played out across human space. Cargo haulers, research vessels, and mining ships all began their journey toward designated rally points. Humanity might have been outnumbered, but they were far from defenseless. At Ceres Station, the largest human outpost in the asteroid belt, Commander Lisa Park watched her tactical display fill with incoming ships. The hidden fleets were emerging. From their concealed bases, and the true extent of humanity's preparations became clear. "My God," whispered her tactical officer. How many ships do we have? Park allowed herself a small smile. 800 and counting. And that's just the beginning. The ships gathering at Ceres were unlike anything the Council had seen before. While the aliens had focused on massive dreadnoughts and carriers, humanity had taken a different approach. Their vessels were smaller, faster, and designed for guerrilla warfare. Each ship was equipped with experimental weapons and shielding systems that Dr. Harper's teams had developed in secret. In the Mars underground, General Foster convened a virtual meeting with commanders from across the solar system. The holographic conference room filled with the images of military leaders, each reporting from their respective commands. Status report, Foster ordered. Admiral Chen appeared first. The inner fleet is at 80% readiness. We've integrated the new quantum torpedoes and phase shields on all primary vessels. Colonel Barnes from the Jupiter Defense Command was next. Outer fleet is mobilizing, ahead of schedule. The Council's going to get a surprise when they try to push past Jupiter. One by one, the commanders reported in. The picture that emerged was of a humanity united in purpose, their response to betrayal swift and decisive. What about our allies? Foster asked. Dr. Harper's image flickered into view. I've been in contact with the Karani and the Volrathi. Both species were harvested by the Council centuries ago. They're willing to provide intelligence and support. This was crucial. The Karani and Volrathi were among the few species that had survived the Council's harvesting, reduced to servant races but never fully broken. Their inside knowledge of Council tactics and technology would be invaluable. The Karani have provided detailed schematics of Council ship vulnerabilities, Harper continued. And the Volrathi, they've given us something even better, the location of the Council's primary cloning facilities. Foster's eyes sharpened. The cloning facilities were where the Council processed harvested genetic material, creating slave armies from conquered species. Destroying them would cripple the Council's long-term plans. Excellent. Now let's discuss strategy. The plan that emerged was audacious in its simplicity. Rather than meet the Council fleets in open battle where numbers would decide the outcome, humanity would fight a war of attrition, hit-and-run tactics, surgical strikes on critical infrastructure, and psychological warfare would be their weapons. As the meeting concluded, Foster delivered her final orders. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species the Council has enslaved. Make them regret the day they decided to harvest humanity. At the secret shipyard in Titan's subsurface ocean, the crown jewel of humanity's fleet was nearing completion. The EDS Vengeance was unlike any ship ever built. Using a combination of human innovation and reverse-engineered alien technology, it represented the pinnacle of military engineering. Captain Diana Ross watched as the final systems came online. The Vengeance was equipped with something the Council believed impossible, a quantum phase drive that could slip between dimensions, making the ship effectively invisible and untouchable. All systems nominal, Captain, reported her chief engineer. The phase drive is responding perfectly. Ross nodded, with satisfaction. Signal the fleet. The Vengeance is ready for deployment. Meanwhile, on the Council flagship, High Counselor Zixa Theta grew increasingly agitated. The harvest fleets were reporting strange malfunctions. Navigation systems failed at critical moments. Communications were plagued with interference, and the humans seemed to know exactly where Council forces would be. They have help, Zixa Theta concluded. The servant races are aiding them. His security chief, a brutal Tharkari named Krex, suggested immediate retaliation. We should punish the Karani and Volrathi, make examples of them. No, Zixa Theta decided. That would only confirm their treachery. We proceed with the harvest. The humans are still primitives. Their resistance will crumble once they face our true might. How wrong he was. The first major engagement occurred in the asteroid belt. A Council harvest fleet of 50 ships moved toward Ceres Station, confident in their superiority. They expected to find a few dozen human vessels at most. Instead, they flew into a carefully prepared trap. The asteroids themselves had been weaponized. Mining charges planted throughout the belt detonated in sequence, creating a deadly storm of rock and metal. Council ships found their shields overwhelmed by the sheer mass of debris. Then the human fleet struck. Emerging from hidden positions among the asteroids, 400 human vessels opened fire with weapons the Council had never seen before. Quantum torpedoes phased through shields as if they didn't exist. Gravitic mines created miniature black holes that tore ships apart. Nanobot swarms consumed hull plating and turned it into more nanobots. Commander Park watched from Ceres Station as the Council fleet was systematically destroyed. For every human they planned to harvest, exact a price, she ordered. No mercy, no surrender. The battle was over in less than an hour. Of the 50 Council ships, only 3 escaped to carry word of the disaster back to their leadership. News spread quickly through both human and Council space. The primitive humans had just annihilated a harvest fleet without losing a single ship. The hunters had become the hunted. But this was just the beginning. As human fleets continued to gather and alien allies provided more intelligence, the true scope of the conflict became clear. This wasn't just a war for survival. It was a war for the future of the galaxy itself, and humanity was determined to win. The hunter becomes the hunted. The destruction of the harvest fleet sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. Emergency sessions were called, strategies reconsidered, and for the first time in millennia, the Council felt something they had thought themselves beyond: fear. In the war room of the EDS Retribution, General Foster studied the holographic display of Council space. The intelligence provided by their Karani and Volrathi allies had revealed the true scope of the Council's empire. Thousands of worlds, hundreds of species reduced to servitude, and a military machine that had never known defeat, until now. The Council is mobilizing their prime fleets, reported Admiral Chen. Our reconnaissance drones show massive formations gathering at these junction points. Red dots appeared on the display marking Council staging areas. Foster's expression remained unreadable. They're expecting us to defend, to hide behind our defenses and wait for them to come. Aren't we? Asked Captain Ross, who had arrived for the briefing along with other fleet commanders. A predatory smile crossed Foster's face. No. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to take the fight to them. The strategy was as bold as it was unexpected. Instead of fortifying Earth and the solar system, the human fleet would launch preemptive strikes against Council infrastructure, supply lines, communication hubs, refueling stations. All would be targeted in a coordinated campaign designed to cripple the Council's ability to wage war. The Vengeance will lead the first strike, Foster announced. Captain Ross, your target is the Council's primary communication relay at Xerion Prime. Without it, their fleets can't coordinate across sectors. Ross nodded, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. Understood, General. What about the defense platforms? That's where our friends come in, Foster replied. The Volrathi have provided us with Council security codes. They're outdated, but our cyber warfare teams believe they can exploit them. In the depths of space, the human fleet prepared for humanity's first offensive war beyond the solar system. Ships that had been built in secret now emerged from their hiding places, forming into battle groups with specific targets and objectives. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, whose discovery had started it all, now commanded a stealth destroyer, the Ghost. Her mission was to infiltrate Council space and deploy sensor networks that would give humanity eyes and ears throughout enemy territory. Remember, she told her crew as they prepared to depart, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species the Council has enslaved, every world they've stripped bare, every civilization they've reduced to genetic samples. The offensive began simultaneously across multiple sectors. The Vengeance, using its quantum phase drive, materialized in the heart of the Xerion system, without warning. Council defense platforms, their systems compromised by outdated security codes, failed to respond as the human warship unleashed its arsenal. Quantum torpedoes tore through the communication relay's shields. Particle beams carved through armor plating. In minutes, the hub that had coordinated Council communications for centuries was reduced to expanding debris. But the Vengeance didn't stop there. Before Council reinforcements could arrive, it phased out of normal space, only to reappear moments later at a supply depot 2 systems away. The pattern repeated across Council space as human strike groups hit target after target. The Council's response was predictable: massive retaliation. Fleets that had been preparing to harvest Earth were redirected to hunt down the human raiders, but they found themselves chasing shadows. The humans used hit-and-run tactics, never staying in one place long enough for the Council's larger fleets to engage. High Counselor Zix Theta watched the tactical displays in growing frustration. "They're insects," he raged. "Annoying pests, striking at random." His new military advisor, a veteran Saurian commander named Vex, disagreed. "Not random, High Counselor. Look at the pattern. They're systematically degrading our infrastructure. Communications, supplies, fuel depots. They're preparing for a larger offensive." Zix Theta's compound eyes narrowed. "Then we must force them to defend, redirect the prime fleets. Earth burns within the cycle." But humanity had anticipated this move. As Council fleets converged on the solar system, they found it transformed into a fortress. The asteroid belt had become a minefield. Jupiter's moons bristled with defensive platforms. Mars had been turned into a military stronghold. And Earth itself? Earth waited like a trap ready to spring. The Battle of Sol began with a Council fleet of over 1,000 ships jumping into the outer system. They expected to overwhelm human defenses through sheer numbers. They didn't expect the sun itself to become a weapon. Dr. Harper's teams had deployed a network of solar collection satellites, devices that could harness and direct the sun's energy. As the Council fleet advanced, these satellites activated, creating coherent beams of solar radiation that burned through shields and armor alike. "Magnificent," Harper whispered, as she watched the lead Council dreadnought literally melt under the concentrated solar fury. "They wanted to harvest us. Instead, they'll feed our sun." The Council fleet pressed forward despite the losses, their commanders confident that numbers would prevail. But as they pushed deeper into the system, they encountered something unprecedented. Human ships that seemed to appear from nowhere, strike, and vanish before return fire could be coordinated. The Ghost and her sister ships had deployed a network of quantum beacons throughout the system. These beacons created temporary phase corridors, allowing human ships to jump short distances instantly. The Council found themselves fighting an enemy that could be everywhere and nowhere at once. Captain Morrison, his mining corvette now armed, with salvaged Council weapons, led a squadron of converted civilian vessels in a daring attack on a Council carrier. "Remember, people," he broadcast to his makeshift fleet, "we're not military. We're miners, haulers, and survey crews. But we're human, and that means we adapt." The battle raged for days. Council commanders, used to overwhelming inferior species, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Their formations were disrupted by gravity mines. Their communications were jammed by quantum interference. Their very ships were infiltrated by nanobot swarms that turned their own systems against them. But the real shock came when the vengeance materialized in the midst of the Council's command group. Captain Ross had waited for the perfect moment, when the enemy flagship was isolated from its escorts. "General Foster sends her regards," Ross transmitted as the Vengeance's weapons locked onto the Council command ship. And a message: "You should have left us alone." The quantum torpedoes that followed deleted the Council flagship from existence. With it went High Counselor Zix Theta and the entire Council military command structure. The remaining Council forces, suddenly leaderless and facing an enemy that seemed to predict their every move, began to fracture. Some tried to retreat. Others surrendered. A few fought to the bitter end. As the battle wound down, General Foster surveyed the wreckage from Earth's command center. The solar system was littered with the remains of the Council's prime fleet. Humanity had won its first major victory, but she knew this was far from over. "Signal all commands," she ordered. "Phase 2 begins now. We take the war to Council space." The liberation of the galaxy had begun. Council worlds that had never seen rebellion suddenly found human ships in their skies, broadcasting messages of freedom. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were offered weapons and training. The monolithic Galactic Council, which had ruled through fear and harvesting for millennia, began to crumble. The hunters had indeed become the hunted, and humanity, the species they had dismissed as primitive, was leading the charge toward a new galactic order. The war was far from over, but for the first time in galactic history, the Council knew fear. They had awakened something in humanity, something primal and unstoppable. They had threatened Earth's children, and Earth's children were coming for them all.